Now, I have to admit, though, Christmas season is so often a study in contrast for me. Because on the one hand, the weather outside during this season can be very dreary. And as someone whose mood is very much affected by the weather, I can feel quite dreary at times. And it's also true that this is a season in which I feel like everybody's getting sick. In our household, we've all been kind of taking turns getting sick. And so all of that kind of combines to feel a little bit dreary, if I'm being honest with you. But there are these moments where these spurts of joy pierce through the dreariness and lift up my mood, whether it's me walking into a coffee shop and I listen to that Christmas song that I really like, or on Sundays when we come like this and we get to worship together, there are these moments where these spurts of joy that we get to experience. And I think this is very much what Christmas is all about. It's not the kind of joy that acts as a floodlight overwhelming you and therefore doing away with all of the sorrows and the brokenness that we experience in this world, but rather the kind of joy that comes, that meets us in our sorrows and the brokenness of life and pierces through it and warming our hearts. And this is the exact way in which God decided to visit us as Jesus. This is what Christmas is all about. One poet put it this way. He said, "Seek not in courts or palaces, nor royal curtains draw, but search in the stable, see your God extended on the straw." Such a study in contrast, isn't it? Christmas tells us that God is found not in courts or palaces, but in the stable, extended on the straw. We see the angel of God, the messenger of heaven, visiting not emperors or dignitaries, but Mary, an unwed, soon-to-be teenage mother from Nowheresville, Bethlehem. And all of this tells you everything that you need to know about what the angel meant when he said that this child to be born of Mary will reign over the house of Jacob forever. His kingdom will never end. The angel tells us that this Jesus, born on a bed of straw, will be king forever. But what kind of king will he be? And what kind of kingdom is he ushering in with his arrival? We learn three things from this text about what it means that Jesus is king and what his kingdom will be like. The first thing that we learn is of the greatness of Jesus as king and the greatness of his kingdom. Let me put it this way. Every other world religion and every worldview that we come across in this world tells you this, that your life is all about moving on up. For those of you that are in high school especially, you might be getting this message from the world over and over again, that your life is about moving on up in society. You need to get the best grades as you possibly can so that you can go to the best school that you can possibly get into. So what? So that you can get the best job that you can possibly get. And the idea is you need to keep moving on up in the world. Now, what I am not saying is that hard work is a bad thing. What I'm not saying is that it's a bad thing for you to work hard and to do better and aspire for something higher. But here is the issue with that. If that is a message that you are constantly receiving, and if that is a message that you are living by, every single moment in which you try to reach for something higher is just a reminder that you are actually down here, isn't it? Are constantly needing to move up the ladder and to climb above it is a reminder of our lowliness. But in contrast to that, what this passage tells us is that true greatness is one that comes down. Think of it this way. Think of somebody who's very much accomplished in their field. They are wildly successful. And they, after a long, hard day of work, they come home to their family. And at work, maybe this person may have had meetings about kind of industry-changing, strategies, or in their interactions, maybe in one exchange, millions of dollars change hands. This person is a very powerful man or a woman. And when they come home, however, we find this person wrestling with their kids. They talk about the most mundane things with their spouses that seem to have no significant value. And towards the end of the night, they get together as a family and play silly little games. And let's say you see this scene playing out before you, would you say, what are you doing? You're this powerful person out there. Why are you stooping so low to be with your family and that kind of thing? Would you be less impressed by that person? I would say not. When we see these scenes playing out, we're actually more impressed. The great one that stoops down low, their movement downward is actually a sign of their greatness. See, the wise can understand the fool, but the fool can never understand the wisdom of the wise. And what Christmas tells us is that the Most High God, the King of the world, has come down, stooped low, all the way into the manger. So Christmas tells us and teaches us about the greatness of this King. Now, what does it mean for the kingdom that he brings into the world then? This kingdom then is one in which greatness is measured by a movement downward. And for those who are kingdom citizens of this God, are ones who are giving their lives away in service, are willing to enter into those who are suffering, willing to enter into the lives of those who are suffering, and those who are eager to serve. That's what greatness looks like in the kingdom that Jesus came to bring into this world. So that's the first thing that we learn about his greatness and what it looks like. But secondly, we also learn something of his meekness. The fact that God comes down shows us his meekness. Now, when I say meekness, I'm using the word in the biblical sense. Meekness in the Bible refers to strength under control. And so one pastor put it this way: it's akin to a lion that has retracted her claws. Where the lion is no doubt strong and powerful, but has decided in meekness to restrain that power, especially for the sake of the other. This kingdom is an affront to the culture around us, isn't it? We are used to stretching the limits of our power and abilities to get and to consume as much as we can. And so it goes that we are quite surprised by the fact that God incarnate and Jesus Christ, who came into the world to save it, to bring a message of salvation that would travel throughout the ends of the earth, chose to be born in a manger and not in a palace. Because we can't, in our human minds, conceptualize what it means for any political figure or a religious leader to choose meekness as the primary trait to lead this movement of the gospel. But think of it this way. When someone stirs up conflict and they confront you, especially for you kids, let's say somebody comes up to you and tries to pick a fight with you, tries to get underneath your skin, tries to rile up so that you get angry. What is the easiest thing for you to do at that point? It's to lash out. It's to fight back. It's to get angry. That is the easy thing to do. What is a harder thing to do? For you to take a deep breath? For you to walk away? For you to extend grace? There's a clip that I came across a couple of weeks ago. Somebody was taking a video on their cell phone, and it took place at a sporting event. And there, you see this one guy who's right in the face of another guy, just yelling at him, We don't know why he's yelling at him, but he's just yelling at him and pointing his finger at him and just really aggressive and ready to fight. And the person on the other end is just kind of smiling and just taking it all in. And after about 15 seconds of that, this person decides to walk away. And the person that was yelling at him has this kind of, expression of victory, right? Like he scared this other person sufficiently enough for this person to walk away. And then the clip cuts to this person that just walked away. Turns out he is an MMA fighter. And there are highlights that played over the next 15 seconds of him just going to town on his competition. And you watch a clip like that and you're like, wow, this is truth strength. To hold back, to extend grace, and to be meek. And what Christmas tells us is that God becoming human, laying aside everything that he had privy to, had privilege of having, and laying aside all of those privileges to become a human being, tells us that this is the pinnacle of strength under control. And here's what this means for those of us who are members, citizens of this kingdom that Jesus came to bring into the world. That we are not marked by shows of our strength. But those who belong to this kingdom will be marked by the restraining of the strength in service of others. But for Christians, meekness is not just an admirable trait, right? This kind of greatness that stoops down is not just an admirable trait that we find in Jesus. Because for Christians, it is in the greatness and the meekness of this God we find our salvation. Because the Christian message is that God becoming human was not just a show of his greatness and his strength, but it was done for a purpose and it accomplished salvation. Right? Because here's the reason why Jesus came into the world: to live the life that you and I should have lived, but at the end of it, to die the death that we should have died for all of the human evil that cuts across every human heart. And what Jesus' greatness tells us is that he alone could absorb in himself the price of human evil. But his meekness tells us that he alone could absorb it all without resorting to vengeance upon those he came to save. This is strength that has been restrained for the salvation of the world. That's why in the book of Isaiah that foretold the coming of this Messiah, he is described in this way. Isaiah 53:7 says, "He was oppressed and afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth. He was led like a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth." This is strength under control for the sake of others. Jesus Christ endured mockery of the crowds. He bore under the weight of the beating of the soldiers. And as he is nailed to the cross, he doesn't speak much throughout the crucifixion account, but he does, one of the few times he speaks, he says, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." That is the kind of kingdom that Jesus came to bring into this world. One in which its citizens are marked by service. One in which its citizens are marked by sacrificial love. One in which its citizens are willing to lay down their lives for the sake of the other. This kingdom is marked by greatness and meekness. But the last thing that we learn from this passage is something about the kingdom that is to come. And that's the last point that I want to cover. See, Christians celebrate Christmas not just for the first arrival of Jesus Christ, but Christians throughout millennia have celebrated Christmas because it also reminds us of the second coming of Jesus Christ. So Christians believe that his birth signaled the coming of his kingdom, This kind of upside down kingdom where greatness is measured by how low you can stoop for the sake of others. This kingdom consists of people that are marked by service and love for the oppressed and the poor, people that are joyfully entering into the service of others and into the suffering of others. And if that marked his first coming, his second arrival would mark the fulfillment and the completion of his kingdom. This is something that Christians refer to as heaven, that we await for. Now, I want to speak a little bit about the hope of heaven here. For most of us, when we think of heaven, we think about it as a place that we go up to, up in the clouds with the angels and enjoying eternal bliss. But I want to correct that a little bit, because the Christian understanding of heaven is one in which heaven comes down. Look at Revelation 21. This is one of the last chapters of the Bible. The Apostle John, he has this vision of heaven that is coming. And he says, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth." Referring to heaven. He says, "I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God." Christians' understanding of heaven is that it comes down. It's not a place you go up to. There are two things that this tells us about what this kingdom to come is then. First, with the arrival of heaven, there will be every tear wiped away from every eye. And the second thing that it marks is the healing of the nations. And here's why it's so important that we know these two things about what heaven is going to be like. Because no other conception of heaven can be said to include tears to be wiped away. No other conception of heaven welcomes the brokenness of the nations for it to be healed. Why? Because every other conception of heaven tells us that at the end of time, if you're a good enough person, if you were religious enough, if you were devoted enough, what's going to happen at the end of time is you're going to leave this God-forsaken place with all of its corruption and cruelty and malice and wickedness, and you're going to go somewhere else where there is nothing but bliss. But this heaven looks at every school shooting. This heaven looks at every tragedy and disaster. This heaven looks at every heartache that you and I experience. And I want you to hear this when I say it. This heaven gives dignity to your suffering. This is the kind of heaven that looks into the depths of your sorrows and refuses to sweep it under the rug. Because this King is one that brings healing in his wings. See, heaven coming down means this heaven, this kingdom, will meet you where you are. It doesn't demand perfection from you. It doesn't demand effort after effort from you. It meets you where you are and draws you nearer to the King who brings healing in his wings. See, Christmas, we're about to sing Joy to the World. But this joy of Christmas is not found in the heights of heaven for you to reach up. But this joy meets you in the depths of your sorrows. And his blessings will pierce through the dreariness of the brokenness of life and bring you comfort and joy in the midst of it all. How will you respond to this King? This is how Mary responded. Upon this news, she said, "I am the Lord's servant. May your word be fulfilled." She understood something of what it means to receive this kingdom and to be a part of this kingdom. She said, "Not everything makes sense. In fact, I am greatly troubled by what you are saying to me. But because this is good news for the entire world, I will submit and yield to this King that is to come. Friends, let me encourage you on this Christmas Sunday and during this Christmas season, would you yield to this King? Because he brings you joy that will pierce through your darkness. And this is a King who will let his blessings flow over your sorrows. No more let sins and sorrow grow, nor thorns infest the ground. He comes to make his blessings flow as far as the curse is found. Let us receive this King today. Let's pray together.